You never expect your life to fall apart in a single sentence. I stood there, frozen, staring at my wife as her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I'm going to see another man. If you try to stop me, I'll call the police and say you hurt me. She said it so calmly, so matter-of-factly, as if she were telling me she was stepping out to buy groceries. There wasn't an ounce of hesitation in her voice. No shame, no regret, just cold certainty. I felt my throat tighten, my stomach twist into knots. My mind refused to accept what I had just heard. This was my wife, the woman I had loved, trusted, built a life with. How had we reached this point? I had sensed something was off for a while. The late nights, the sudden need for privacy, the way she started pulling away, treating me like an inconvenience rather than a partner. But even in my worst nightmares, I never thought she would stand in front of me and say those words. She had already made up her mind. She wasn't asking for my permission. She was warning me, giving me an ultimatum. Either I let her go quietly, or she would ruin me. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to stay upright. My entire body was screaming at me to react, to yell, to demand answers, to beg her to reconsider. But something inside me whispered, "Don't." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. If she was capable of this, then I never really knew her at all. Instead of reacting the way she expected, I simply looked at her and asked why. For the first time, she hesitated. That single word, so small yet so heavy, made her shift uncomfortably. I could tell she wasn't expecting it. Maybe she had imagined me shouting, pleading, getting angry, but I didn't give her that satisfaction. She crossed her arms, her gaze flickering for just a second before she answered. I need excitement. I need passion. I feel trapped in our marriage, in the home we built together, in the life where I had supported her dreams, held her through her worst days, and loved her unconditionally. She sighed as if I was the one being difficult. Look, this is happening whether you like it or not. I'm done pretending. That was when I knew she had been planning this for a long time. This wasn't just a moment of weakness. This wasn't a mistake. She regretted she had already left me emotionally. This was just her way of making it official. I swallowed the lump in my throat, my heart pounding. I should have felt rage, betrayal, despair, and maybe deep down I did. But what I felt most at that moment was clarity. This wasn't about me. It never was. This was who she had always been. I had just been too blind to see it. I nodded, slowly stepping aside. Go. Then her eyes widened slightly. I think she expected more resistance, more drama, but I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. She scoffed, shaking her head. I'll come by later to get my things. And with that, she turned on her heel and walked out the door. I stood there in silence, listening as her footsteps faded, as the sound of her car starting up filled the air. And then the strangest thing happened. I exhaled, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Little did I know, karma was already on its way to deal with everything. I stood in the doorway long after Lisa had left, staring at the empty street, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. A part of me wanted to believe this was a nightmare, that I would wake up and everything would be normal again. But the reality was undeniable. My wife had just walked out, not just on me, but on everything we built together. And she did it without a shred of remorse. I felt numb, like my emotions had shut down. To keep me from collapsing, I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, and just sat at the table staring at nothing. That was when the weight of it all started to sink. In the late nights, the whispered phone calls, the sudden change in her attitude toward me, as if I had become nothing more than a nuisance in her life. I had ignored the signs for months, maybe even years, convincing myself that she was just going through something, that we would find our way back to each other. But now I realized the truth. Lay had been gone long before she ever spoke those words to me. I don't know how long I sat there, lost in thought, but at some point my phone buzzed a text message. I picked it up, half expecting it to be Lisa, maybe trying to explain herself. But when I saw the name on the screen, my heart nearly stopped. It was from Josh. Josh was my closest friend, my best man at our wedding, the guy who had always been there for me. But lately I hadn't seen much of him. He'd been distant, avoiding my calls, making excuses when I tried to meet up. At first I thought he was just busy, but now a sick feeling crept into my gut. I opened the message. "Hey man, I need to talk to you. It's important. Can you meet me?" Something about the way he worded, it sent a chill down my spine. I stared at the screen for a moment before replying. "Where?" He sent me an address, a bar on the other side of town. I hesitated, my mind racing with possibilities, but in the end, I grabbed my keys and left. The bar was dimly lit, the kind of place where people went to drink their troubles away in peace. When I walked in, I spotted Josh sitting at a corner booth, his expression tense. He looked up as I approached, and I could tell he was nervous. I slid into the seat across from him. "Talk," I said, keeping my voice steady. Josh exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. "Man, I don't even know where to start. Start with the truth." He looked at me for a long moment before nodding. "Lisa's been lying to you." I let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, I got that part." "No, you don't get it," he said quickly. "It's worse than you think." I felt my jaw tighten. "Just say it." Josh took a deep breath. "She's been cheating on you for over a year. And I know, because," he swallowed hard, "because she cheated with one of my friends." The word felt like a slap to the face. I clenched my fists under the table, my body stiff. A year. An entire year. My wife had been sneaking around, lying to my face while I stayed up late, worrying about why she seemed so distant. And my voice was low, almost dangerous. Josh hesitated, then muttered a name. I felt my blood run cold. It was Mark. Mark had been a mutual friend, someone I had invited into my home countless times. I had trusted him, and all this time he had been sleeping with my wife behind my back. I gritted my teeth, my fingers digging into the table. The sheer betrayal hit me like a freight train. Josh looked down. I didn't know at first. When I found out, I told her to come clean, but she just laughed and said you'd never find out. He exhaled sharply. "I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry, man." I stared at him, my heart pounding. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about my life, had just been ripped apart. Lisa didn't just leave me. She had been gone for a long, long time. And the worst part, I never saw it coming. I sat there staring at Josh, the weight of his words crushing down on me like a collapsing building. My mind raced, trying to piece together every moment, every sign I had ignored a year. For over a year, Lisa had been lying to my face, sneaking around behind my back. And Mark, the guy I had laughed with, shared drinks with, trusted, he had been the one betraying me alongside her. My hands were clenched into fists under the table, my nails digging into my palms. I felt like a fool. Josh shifted uncomfortably, clearly waiting for me to say something. But what could I say? What words existed to describe the kind of betrayal that leaves you hollow inside finally? I forced myself to speak. Tell me everything. Josh hesitated, then nodded. All right, but you might not want to hear it. I need to. He sighed. It started at that party last year, the one at Sam's place. I blinked my mind, flashing back to that night. Sam had thrown a big birthday party. Drinks were flowing, music was loud, and Lisa had been different. She had spent most of the night, apart from me, laughing with a group of people completely unconcerned about where I was. I had chalked it up to her just wanting to have fun. I had been an idiot. Mark was there. Josh continued. They got drunk. She was all over him, right in front of people. At first I thought she was just being friendly, but then I saw them sneak upstairs together. I inhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't want to believe it. Josh admitted. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that maybe I was just imagining things. But then it kept happening. More parties, more work trips, more excuses. I exhaled slowly, my mind buzzing with fury. All those times Lisa had told me she was going out with friends or staying late at work. It had been a lie. Every single excuse, every single night she came home smelling like a perfume I didn't recognize. It had all been part of her deception, and I had been too blind to see it. How long have you known for sure? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Josh hesitated. 6 months. I sucked in a breath. 6 months. He had known for 6 months and hadn't told me. I closed my eyes, trying to contain the fire burning inside me. Why didn't you say anything? Josh looked down, guilt written all over his face. I wanted to, but Lisa, she told me you wouldn't believe me, that if I tried, she'd make it look like I was just trying to break you two up. I let out a bitter laugh. She manipulated you too. Josh nodded. Yeah, man, and I'm sorry. I should have told you. Anyway, I looked at him, my emotions wearing inside me. I was angry, hurt, betrayed, but most of all I was just exhausted. I had wasted so much time on someone who never loved me the way I loved her. I pushed back from the table and stood up. Thanks for telling me. Now Josh looked surprised. That's it? I nodded. Yeah, because now it's my turn to move on. As I walked out of the bar, I realized something for the first time since Lisa had left. I didn't feel broken. I felt free. But little did I know, karma was already at work. Walking out of that bar, I expected to feel like the weight of the world had just been dumped on my shoulders. But instead, there was a strange lightness inside me. Maybe it was the clarity. Maybe it was the realization that my marriage had been over long before Lisa walked out that door. Whatever it was, it kept me steady. As I drove home, my mind playing through every moment, I had ignored every lie I had swallowed whole. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the anger had settled into something else. A cold determination. I wasn't going to fall apart over Lisa. She wasn't worth it. But that didn't mean I was done with her just yet. When I walked into the house, it felt empty. Not in the literal sense. Our furniture was still there, our pictures still hung on the walls, mocking me with memories of a life that had been built on deception. But the soul of it, the warmth, was gone. I didn't mourn it. Instead, I went straight to my laptop. If Lisa had been planning this for a long time, I needed to see how deep the betrayal went. I opened up our shared phone account, a little trick I had used in the past whenever she lost her phone or needed help with a bill. It showed me all her recent calls and text messages. And that's when I saw it. Mark. Hundreds of calls, thousands of messages. And then there was something else. a number I didn't recognize, but one that had been in constant communication with her for months. I copied the number and searched it, and that's when I felt my stomach drop. It was registered to an attorney's office, a divorced lawyer. So, that was it. Lisa had never planned to have a real conversation with me about leaving. She was setting me up to be blindsided. I felt my hands tighten into fists. She had been squatting this behind my back, waiting for the right moment to drop everything and run. And she almost got away with it. Almost. The next morning I woke up feeling sharper than I had in months. I wasn't going to be Lisa's fool anymore. I took the day off work and went straight to a lawyer of my own if she thought she could screw me over and walk away clean. She was about to learn otherwise. I sat down across from a woman named Angela, a non-nonsense attorney with a reputation for tearing apart spouses who tried to manipulate their way out of marriages. I liked her immediately. "Tell me everything," she said, folding her hands on her desk. And so I did. I told her about Lisa's betrayal, about the threats, about how she had already been planning her exit long before she ever told me. Angela listened carefully, nodding at the right moments. Then she leaned back in her chair and said something that made my blood run cold. "She was setting you up for false domestic violence claims." My breath caught, and Angela sighed. "It's not uncommon. A lot of people, especially ones who have been cheating, try to paint their spouse as abusive so they can get better leverage in court. She probably hoped to have you on record, reacting badly when she told you, maybe even get you arrested. It would have given her an advantage in the divorce." I felt a wave of nausea roll over me. Lisa wasn't just leaving me, she was trying to ruin me. Angela must have seen the look on my face because she quickly added, "Don't worry, she hasn't filed anything yet. And since she's the one who left, you actually have the upper hand for the first time since this nightmare started." I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to come out on top. Later that night, I got a text from Lisa. "Hey, I'll be coming by tomorrow to get my things. Be out of the house." When I do, I stared at the message, my mind worrying. She thought she still had control. She was wrong. I took a deep breath and replied, "Sure, see you then." Because what Lisa didn't know was that karma was already waiting for her. The night before Lisa was supposed to come by and collect her things, I barely slept. Not because I was anxious. Those feelings had burned out long ago. It was because my mind was too busy working through every angle, every possible move she might make. By now I knew the kind of person I was dealing with. Lisa wasn't just walking away from our marriage. She wanted to bury me in the rubble before she left. Angel's warning echoed in my mind. Lisa had been setting me up for false domestic violence claims. She had planned this long before she ever stood in front of me and said those chilling words. "If you try to stop me, I'll call the police and say you hurt me." She had meant it. She wanted me cornered, helpless. But I had a different plan. The morning of Lisa's return, I set everything up carefully. First, I made sure I wouldn't be alone. I called my older brother Daniel and asked him to be there. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Whatever you need, I've got your back." Next, I made sure there would be undeniable proof of everything. I set up cameras in the living room and hallway, hidden but recording everything. If Lisa so much as raised her voice, I'd have it on tape. And finally, I made sure Angela had a heads up. "I guarantee you she's going to try something," I told her over the phone that morning. Angela was unfazed. That's why we'll be 2 steps ahead by noon. Everything was in place. Now all I had to do was wait. Lisa showed up at exactly p.m. I heard her car pull into the driveway, and a minute later she walked through the front door like she still owned the place. She wasn't alone. Mark was with her. I had expected that Mark walked in first, trying to look intimidating. He glanced around the house like he was already moving in the audacity of this guy. Lisa followed, wearing a smirk that sent a chill down my spine. She thought she had one. She thought she was in control. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. Lisa flipped her hair over her shoulder inside. Well, this is awkward, but let'n just get this over with. She walked past me, heading for the bedroom. Mark stayed behind, staring me down. I could see the amusement in his eyes, the smugness he had taken my wife. And now he was standing in my home enjoying the sight of me losing everything. Except I wasn't losing anything. They were. Lisa spent the next 30 minutes packing up her things while I stayed in the living room with Daniel. Neither of us spoke to Mark, and he didn't say much either. Just leaned against the wall, arms crossed, as if he was expecting something to happen. Lisa made a show of walking back and forth between the bedroom and the front door, dragging out the process as long as possible. She wanted to push me to see if I would snap, but I stayed calm. Then, just as she was about to leave, she turned to me with a smirk. By the way, I already talked to my lawyer. I'll be going after the house and half your savings. Mark chuckled beside her, shaking his head. Tough break, man. I met Lisa's gaze and smiled. You mean the house that's already in the process of being legally transferred to my brother? I asked casually. Her smirk faltered. I turned to Daniel, who pulled out a folder from his bag and set it on the coffee table. Filed this morning, I said. As of next week, this house legally belongs to him. Lisa's face went pale. You can't do that. I can, I said smoothly, and I did. Her hands curled into fists. That doesn't change the money. I'll still get half of everything. I let out a slow breath, Lisa. I said you might want to check your bank account. She froze. Then, pulling out her phone, she started tapping furiously. I watched as her face drained of all color. Her accounts were empty. Every dime we had ever shared had already been moved legally through accounts she had no access to. I could hear her breath hitching. She was panicking now. Mark frowned. What's going on? Lisa didn't answer him. She just stared at me, wide-eyed, her entire plan crumbling right in front of her. I stepped forward, lowering my voice. You thought you could trap me. You thought you could destroy me. But Lisa, you never saw the bigger picture. Her lips parted, but no words came out, because there was nothing left to say. Lisa stormed out without another word. Mark followed, cursing under his breath, but I barely heard him. I watched from the doorway as they got into her car, her perfect little escape plan turning to dust. She had tried to play me, but karma had already taken the wheel in the best part. This was only the beginning. Lisa and Mark sped off in her car tires, screeching against the pavement. But I didn't move. I just stood there watching them disappear down the street, feeling an eerie sense of calm settle over me. It was over. At least the part where she thought she had control was over. Daniel let out a low whistle beside me. Man, that was brutal. I almost feel bad for her. I turned to him, and as I murked almost, he chuckled almost. We went back inside, and for the first time in months, the house didn't feel suffocating. It wasn't haunted by Lisa's lies anymore. I poured us both a drink, and we clinked glasses to fresh starts. Daniel said I nodded to fresh starts, but as I sipped my drink, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting some angry text from Lisa, or worse, from a lawyer demanding an explanation. But instead it was a message from an unknown number. I frowned and opened it, and what I saw made my blood run cold. You need to see this. Check your email. That was all it said. No name, no context. I didn't know why, but a strange feeling settled in my chest. I put my glass down and immediately opened my email. there was one new message. No subject line, just a single attachment. A video. I hesitated for only a second before pressing play. The footage was grainy, but clear enough to recognize what I was looking at. A hotel room, a familiar one. My stomach clenched. I could see Lisa, and I could see Mark. But they weren't alone. There was a third man in the room. I leaned forward, my breath hitching. Lisa was sitting on the bed laughing, too familiar, too comfortable. She looked at Mark, then at the other guy, and then, clear as day, I heard her voice. If he ever finds out, I'll just say he was abusive. My blood turned to ice. The video continued. Mark chuckled, running a hand through his hair. And if that doesn't work, Lisa smirked, then I'll take everything he has and walk away like nothing happened. The other guy laughed, someone I didn't recognize. Damn, you're cold, girl. Lisa shrugged. I do what I have to do. The video cut out. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was premeditated. Lisa hadn't just cheated. She had been planning to destroy me. Long before she walked out the door, Daniel was watching over my shoulder. He let out a low, slow breath. Wow, I knew she was bad, but damn. I felt something shift inside me. The rage was gone. Now there was just certainty. Lisa thought she had one. She thought she had escaped. But Karma wasn't done with her. Yet I sent the video straight to Angela. She called me within minutes. Where did you get this? She demanded. Anonymous source. I said, what can we do with it? Angela exhaled sharply. Plenty. If she tries to come after you in court, we can use this to show premeditated intent to commit fraud. And if she actually tries to pull the abuse card, this will destroy her credibility. I leaned back, letting those words settle destroy her credibility. Lisa had built her entire escape plan on manipulation, deception, and lies, and now she was about to lose everything. That night, I didn't hear from Lisa, not a single text, not a single call. I half expected her to realize what I had done and come storming back demanding answers. But she didn't. It was almost too quiet. And then, the next morning, I found out why. Because Karma had already found her first. I was sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee when my phone buzzed again. This time it was from Josh. Josh, the guy who had told me the truth about Lisa. The guy who had been too scared to warn me earlier. Dude, you need to check the news now. I frowned and pulled up my phone, and there it was, a headline that made my jaw drop. Local man caught in marriage scandal. Mistress exposed in high-profile corporate affair. I clicked on the article, my heart pounding, and as I read the details, I felt something between satisfaction and disbelief, because the local man in question was Mark, and the mistress being exposed in a massive scandal was Lisa. I kept reading, barely able to believe what I was seeing. Apparently Mark, who I had always known was an SAS, hadn't just been sleeping with my wife. He had also been having an affair with his boss's wife, and when the boss found out, he burned Mark's entire career to the ground. Not just Mark's career, Lisa's too. The article detailed how Lisa had been receiving money and gifts from Mark for months, money that had been traced back to fraudulent business deals at Mark's company. The entire thing had just exploded overnight. Lisa wasn't just caught, she was humiliated. I put my phone down, staring at the table in stunned silence. Lisa had spent months, maybe years, plotting to ruin my life, and in the end, she had ruined her own. She had walked out of my life thinking she was escaping into a perfect future. Instead, she had walked straight into Karma's waiting arms. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. I sat there staring at my phone screen, rereading the article again and again. It was surreal. Lisa and Mark had dug their own graves. Not only had she lost me, but now she had lost her reputation, her stability, and, if what I was reading was correct, even her job. I leaned back, letting out a slow breath. I had expected to feel vindicated, maybe even ecstatic at the thought of karma coming full circle so perfectly. But what I felt was something else entirely. Relief. Because for the first time in a long time, Lisa had nothing to do with me anymore. She was finally out of my life. Daniel walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Dude, why are you up so early?" he muttered, grabbing a cup of coffee. I slid my phone across the table, read that he scrolled through the article, his expression shifting from confusion to shock to pure amusement. "Holy crap," he muttered. "I thought you were going to be the one to take them down, but they managed to do it all by themselves." I nodded. "Exactly," Daniel grinned. "So what now? You going to reach out to her? Rub it in?" I shook my head. "No," I said simply. "I don't need to." Lisa had already lost. She knew it, and, knowing her, that was the worst punishment imaginable. I didn't hear from Lisa for 2 days. Not a single call, not a single message. Until, on the 3rd day, my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I had a feeling I knew exactly who it was. I hesitated for only a second before answering. "Hello." A pause, then a breath. "Hey." Lisa's voice was different. Gone was the arrogance, the sharp edge of someone who thought she was untouchable. Now she sounded small, lost. I said nothing. I just waited. She let out a shaky breath. I know I screwed up." I let out a bitter chuckle. That's one way to put it. Lisa hesitated. I don't know where to go, Mark." She stopped herself, her voice breaking. "Mark threw me under the bus. His boss made sure I lost my job, and now he's acting like he never even knew me." I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity. Just nothing. "That's rough," I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. Lisa sniffled. Can we talk? I need someone right now." I almost laughed. She needed me, the same man she had walked out on without a second thought, the same man she had planned to destroy. Now that her world was falling apart, she wanted me to pick up the pieces. I leaned back in my chair, taking my time before answering Lisa. I said, my voice calm, steady. "You made your choices." She sucked in a breath. "I know, but no," I cut her off. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to walk back and, like nothing happened, silence." Then a whisper. "I don't know what to do." I closed my eyes, shaking my head. "That's not my problem." And with that I hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand, expecting some kind of reaction from myself, guilt, sadness, anything. But I felt nothing but peace. Lisa was finally gone, and this time for good. I stood up, stretched, and walked outside, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face. For the first time in years, my life was my own again, and it had never felt better. Epilogue. The aftermath. Months passed. Lisa never tried to reach out again. Last I heard, she was couch surfing, struggling to get back on her feet. After losing everything, Mark, he vanished. Word on the street was that he skipped town after the scandal destroyed his career. As for me, I thrived. I focused on my own life, my own happiness. I reconnected with old friends, traveled, even started dating again. And every now and then I'd think back to that moment, the moment Lisa stood in front of me and said she was leaving for another man, and I'd smile, because karma had taken care of everything, and I had never looked back.